Good morning. Thanks for being here virtually on this rainy October the 26th morning. Today's MnSTAC forum is on equitable workforce development, equity in hiring, eliminating barriers for entry-level tree care workers, crew transportation, and recruitment challenges. This session is being facilitated by Madeline Ross, who is the graduate placements manager for Tree Trust Career Pathways. And we're also joined by Daniel Asper, who's an injections field supervisor with Rainbow Tree Care. So we're going to have a brief presentation and then we'll get into some discussion. I think we've got a nice core group here, so we don't need to do breakout rooms. We can sort of discuss and brainstorm together. But with that, I'm just going to pass it over to Madeline, who will get us going.
Great. Well, good morning. Thank you all so much for joining again. And thank you, Ryan, for organizing this. My name is Madeline Ross. I use she, her pronouns. And like Ryan said, I am the graduate placements manager for Tree Trust Career Pathways. So knowing Karen's involvement and Tree Trust involvement in MnSTAC, I won't go too into the details about what exactly we do. But we'll just start with a brief overview. So as many of you know, we are a nonprofit organization and social enterprise in the Twin Cities with career pathways programs that focus on paid job training for young adults that are interested in green careers. So we have a lot of different focus areas as an organization. Just to go over it briefly, part of our mission is, like I said, pathways to careers. We equip people to achieve family supporting skilled trade green careers to create economic opportunity and equity here in the Twin Cities. We also have a thriving community forestry department that Karen represents. Her team has been fantastic, and I'm sure all of you are very busy this October with some of your own planting initiatives. So that's one side of what we do. We're also really focused around partnership in a plethora of ways. We have employer partners that hire our program graduates after they are done training with us. We have planting partners, corporate partnerships, as well as a vast network of donors that support what we do. So really like to capture all of this just into one blended way that we follow our vision, which is a thriving workforce living on a healthy planet. So with that, today I'm going to focus mainly on our branch's pre-apprenticeship program. Like I mentioned, we have career pathways programs that offer paid training to youth and young adults. But our branches program specifically has been where we kind of bring that initiative into the fold locally. So the branches program was started about 2.5 years ago in spring of 2021. And the focus of this program was, we know that there is this massive need for trained entry-level tree care employees and folks that get that exposure to just this need in our local workforce. So the program is open to young adults ages 18 to 28, and we provide advanced training, paid training that offers an on-ramp into green collar or skilled trade careers. And we're really proud of this, mainly because, this way of breaking into this field of work doesn't require that additional schooling or education debt that can be a huge barrier for a lot of young adults in the area. And so the program operates on these 10-week cohort groups. We really believe in the power of peer-to-peer support in training. We also have an expansive trainer team that works with these individuals on securing those tree care skills that I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, in this 10-week program, they work with other young adults and with our team to learn tree care, landscaping, some construction, and property maintenance skills. And then I'll get into a little bit more of those operations. So we're focusing on the branches program today, but I also just want to note that we also have our Youth Build program, which is a federally funded workforce initiative. The focus of that program mainly is on building construction skills for youth ages 16 to 21. But we also incorporate tree care training in that program. So want to make sure they were noted as well. So how this works is we really focus on transferable employment readiness training. We have hard skills training, obviously, in tree care, but we also want to boost the skills for these young professionals in areas that maybe they haven't received training before, such as financial literacy training, how to interview for a job, how to speak with employers and network in the field. Just those transferable skills that if they go through our program and decide that tree care isn't a right fit for them, they still have these tangible life skills that can serve them in their career, regardless of that industry. We also offer related instruction training throughout their time in the program. And, this is outside of the typical day-to-day field work. We offer workshops, including tree risk assessment and how to identify trees as part of our programming. So they're paid to learn all these skills. We pay our trainees throughout this time in our program, whether it's an employment readiness workshop or time that they dedicate to earning industry recognized credentials. We pay them for the time that they go through first aid and CPR training. We offer different tree care certifications. And our advanced trainees are also working towards their U of M tree inspector certification. So there are a lot of different ways that these industry recognized credentials support them in securing their next job. And so with that knowledge, we try to make that a high priority in our programming. So once our trainees are done with their training with us, once they make it through the 10 weeks successfully, they're have received positive feedback from our team, and we know that they're ready for the next step, we try to connect them with our employer partners across different industries. So that's part of my role. I manage employer partnerships and job placements so that when these young adults are through with the program, they have these jobs set up with companies that we know, appreciate, and are on board with our vision for that thriving workforce on a healthy planet. And that way we know that they're ready to fulfill what we're trying to do, which is offer them this training that can stay with them and make them successful employees with our tree care company partners, partners like Rainbow Tree Care, who have hired our program graduates several times. So we're really appreciative of them and our other employer partners. Now, I know I'm kind of flying through. I will leave some time at the end for questions. So thank you for just giving me a moment with that. Just briefly to go over some of our scope of projects. I know that saying we train them in tree care is a really broad scope. So it really depends on the season and, various factors, but we try to offer consistent training to these individuals on equipment, on skills for tree care and property maintenance in the branches program. And they are seasonal employees of ours. We look for ways that they can contribute to a variety of local parks, trails, nature centers, and the neighborhoods that we work in. So I won't run through that whole list. I will have these slides available through Ryan after the fact. So, and I'm always open to conversation. So we could dive into these a little bit further at another time. So just to kind of go from that overview into why we are here today to discuss workforce equity is obviously this huge, vast area of focus for companies such as your own. And so when we think about our challenges for job placements, a significant one is transportation for the folks in our programs. Our programs are focused on individuals with barriers to employment, whether that be coming from a low income background, living with disability, and just other factors that limit access to certain jobs, which we're really happy to offer. That's a huge part of our vision, is breaking down those barriers. So knowing that some of our folks join the programs without driver's licenses, they all receive the same training. Whether or not they have a driver's license, they all receive the same skills, work to obtain the same industry recognized credentials. But some of them really struggle to find job placements after the program with tree care companies because of that driver's license requirement. So transportation continues to be that barrier for some of our professional trainees to get those local jobs that we know that they're qualified for, except for that driver's license. So in kind of exploring why that is, maybe why someone doesn't have that driver's license, oftentimes we hear that they have limited access to a reliable vehicle. Maybe their family shares one car and there just isn't that time available to get that behind the wheel practice. There is oftentimes financial challenges. I think that goes without saying. Among other ways that resources tend to be a struggle. But luckily, our team of employment readiness trainers have workshops focused on driver's education, so that people who come into our programs can obtain that permit, can work towards that driver's license. But as we know, that can take a lot of time. Getting that permit sometimes takes months. On top of that, getting that driver's license can take a significant amount of time and arrangement. So really just wanted to open this as a casual discussion, not necessarily focused on tree trust and how our employer partners can hire folks without driver's licenses, but really just to acknowledge this as a challenge across this local tree care network, and see where people are with that. Maybe this is a challenge that you haven't considered prior to this. Maybe it's something that you've been looking at with your HR teams and that you've seen other companies able to pull it off. But yeah, we really just wanted to give a platform for this discussion. And again, just really grateful that Ryan and the MnSTAC team is open to putting this topic on the table. So with that, we today wanted to give a time to feature one of our employer partners, Rainbow, just to kind of hear a little bit about their perspective, knowing that this workforce challenge has touched their business and that they've explored solutions around this. So with that, again, I'll just wait on questions to the end, and we can just jump right into what Danny has to share with us.
Awesome. Thank you, Madeline. So I am Danny. I am the injections field supervisor and hiring manager here at Rainbow Companies. As the slide kind of shows, those are our overarching Rainbow companies, but then we have a whole bunch of different divisions under there. Today, I'm actually going to focus more on our summer seasonal 2 full-time technicians. They are unique in the sense that majority of them only stay with us for the summer, as I'm sure a lot of you experience, since a lot of the work we do is during the growing season as compared to the dormant season. And so when I speak on this, I really am pointing towards those folks who only join us for a short period of time. And then I will touch a little bit on where that goes for some of our folks who may struggle with certain qualifications, including licenses, driver's license. But for specific to our summer seasonal folks, here at Rainbow Companies within our tree care division under injections, which is actually our largest division of summer seasonal technicians that we take on. And just to give you a kind of a rough idea there, this past 2023 season, we had 82 summer seasonals that worked under me that through the whole winter, which starting now, internally in that team, we source, recruit, interview, and hire all of those folks. And some of the big challenges that we do see there, especially going to the younger generations and colleges and so forth, is that driver's license wasn't necessarily something that they felt they needed, or it is a big challenge to get just because the resources of where they live or the work they were hoping to do did not necessarily require that they do that. And as I'm sure you all know, carrying a driver's license or getting one is a process. And it's not something you can go to the DMV and be like, hey, can I have one? So the biggest challenge that we see in a division on trying to hire 80 plus people for a very short period of that growing season is first off that they carry a driver's license just to start with. This past year, looking at the data that I have, we ended up having 7 folks almost automatically decline our offers due to the need for a driver's license, simply because they just weren't going to be able to get it in time, and they felt they would go on to different offers instead. And then looking at of all the folks that we had who came in without a driver's license, we had 6 who actually did decide to work for us, who we acknowledged didn't carry a driver's license. We took them on regardless, because we do have, at least within our injections division, we have a program that we can have technicians work within to be able to have the possibility of getting the numbers that we needed. So 80, we're hoping for 85. We got 82 technicians for the summer. And of that group, there were 6 that came in without being able to drive for us. And those were non-driver's licensed folks. They had the challenges of just not acquiring one in the time frame for which growing up kind of takes on, where you're supposed to have a driver's license, or they didn't have a reason to, and so forth. So how we at Rainbow work with those individuals is a program that I like to call Sheboygan. Sheboygan originated out of the city of Sheboygan in Wisconsin, where there's a forester out there who also has the same type of challenge, where he was hiring on summer seasonal high school students that didn't necessarily carry a driver's license, and also he only needed 3 folks. And so his process was that he partnered folks up and had them go out and do injections. And just so everyone is on the same page, the injections that we do are micro and macro injections on ash, oak, and elm. And it's very much kind of almost individualized production that an individual would do to be most efficient. And an injection takes between 15 minutes to up to a few hours, depending on what you're doing. And individual technicians go out and do those injections all over the metro. The reason our team needs as many people as we do is because from ash injections, where you're protecting against emerald ash borer, that team alone is 65 of that 85, and they treat over 34,000 trees in the metro in one summer. And that's a huge part of the job, regardless of doing the injection, is driving, in which case is why we need as many folks with driver's license as we do just individuals. So jumping out of that backstory, back to the challenge. So we took on 6 individuals who did not carry driver's license, and we started our Sheboygan program. The Sheboygan program entails that technicians would buddy up. They go into the metro to one of our municipal contracts, and there is a driver and another technician with that driver. Obviously, there's only one driver, so they do have to stay relatively close within the city to do those injections, or on our commercial site and so forth. And how we made it as efficient as possible, because obviously we'd make we'd have an impact to the bottom line with the inefficiency of not having individual techs doing their individual work. We created a buddy system, and that was where those two technicians are set up with one set of equipment, one vehicle, one tablet, and then they bunny hop in setting up kits to treat trees, specifically ash against emerald ash borer. And then those individual treatments take about 15 minutes. And so as one technician is setting up a tree, the next technician is either doing the paperwork or getting ready to set up the next tree. We acknowledge the struggle that the workforce that we work within may have not been able to obtain a license within the window of time that we need. And so that is the closest that we've been able to get to a program where we can take on entry-level folks, college students, high school students, or individuals who are just looking to get into the industry at a level where they can still gain skills, still spend the summer making money to work towards getting a driver's license in the future. And how we do that is with our buddy program. Now, that's just the challenge with folks who come in without a driver's license. This was the first year that we actually had 4 individuals come in with driver's license, but with the nature of the work that I'm sure all of you realize within the green industry, you have to carry insurance, and insurance premiums and specifications, at least through our company, ended up kicking people off of our insurance because they had just obtained their driver's license within the last few months prior to starting the position. And in Minnesota alone, if you carry a probationary license, you carry it for 6 months. And a lot of insurance companies, especially at a company where we have heavy equipment operators all the way down to just normal drivers, the insurance is very, very meticulous on who we have insured. And so they booted 3 of our technicians who don't have anything wrong with the driver's license, but are carrying a probationary. So we ended up having to have tough conversations with folks who are committed to working with us for the summer and moving them into our buddy system program. So I don't know if anybody else on the call is having that or has seen that as a concern, but especially if you start to recruit within high schools where you just need folks who are 18 years of age, understand that your insurance might also have a problem with probationary licensing too. So, but yeah, that's kind of where our program is currently. The biggest challenge that we have with a buddy system in a division that has as much work as we do, that we have to do during the growing season, is the efficiency of basically making 2 people into one, and seeing and being able to get the same production out of those individuals as if they were separated and both driving separate vehicles. And so ways we've kind of combated, tried to mitigate that, is by reducing the amount of equipment they carry, setting them up on contracts where they have a lot of trees next to each other so they're able to utilize carts and walking, and then of course adding additional training towards time management and routing and best practices around how you can communicate with each other to ensure that you're being the most efficient on those sites. And those are the biggest mitigations we found there. We do see efficiency is increasing now that we've really started to fine-tune the program, but it does still end up causing a little bit of a hit, not only to us as a company or as a division of injections, but also to the morale of those technicians who have to be buddied up, because it is a hindrance, and it isn't one that I'm sure the entire team acknowledges in some way, shape, or form. And we do our best to relay the message that it's not a weakness or a weak point for those folks to not have a driver's license with us or not being able to drive for us, and that what's more important is just being able to go out there and do the work. But there's still continuous challenges that we're finding within the workforce beyond driver's license, that I'm sure all of you are seeing. But a big one for us, at least in the past 3 years, has been the driver's license. And our biggest way of mitigating that has been creating this buddy system where they are not required to drive for us. But it wouldn't be the first thing we would choose for a candidate that came in the door. So yeah. That's what I got. It looks like a question popped in just at the right time.
Yep. So for those who can't see, thank you, Danny. I really appreciate that. Paul asked, how do they get to work without a driver's license? The answer from my perspective, from our programs, is we have designated pickup spots in the Twin Cities. That's how our programs operate. We have crews of 4 to 5 individuals, and our trainers go and pick them up at these pickup spots. We typically pick locations that are close to a bus line. Sometimes individuals will get a ride from a parent or from someone that is on their support team. But no, that's a great question. We've seen all kinds of varieties. And I know that the mentality for some of our employers that do hire without a driver's license just say, I don't care how you get here, just get here on time. And all kinds of stories come out of that of like, the bus was late, so they had to call an Uber, or the bus stop was 5 minutes away, so they'd have to get an earlier bus to walk over there. Like all kinds of stories come out of there. And, you know, it is a challenge. And a lot of the times they are really reliable and understand that high importance. And then sometimes it's still a challenge, that timeliness. So, yeah, just a wide variety there. Danny, I don't know if you had other experiences of how people get there without a driver's license, but.
Yeah, so even in the question there, like public transportation, carpool, existing employees, a lot of our folks who don't actually carry a driver's license, they do end up buddying up with folks they meet out of their location. And one thing about our Minnetonka location, like if I have a technician who's coming without a driver's license, and they are more than likely going to take public transportation, I automatically will place them out of our Minnetonka location compared to our other two, simply because there's a bus route right at the end of the road. So biggest thing there is, yeah, we don't do the mentality of however you get here, you get here. It does come down to like, what is your reliable transportation and what is the backup plan and how can we support you in that? We don't go as far as it sounds like what Tree Trust does, which that's amazing. But we do at least acknowledge that we want them to be able to get to work on time and safely, and in hopes in giving them resources and ways to do that. So.
Mm-hmm. And it really depends on the size and scope of how flexible a company might be. We have an employer partner that's pretty far outside of the cities, but only has a team of 5 individuals. And you know, they were looking to hire one of our landscaping trainees, and knowing that he didn't have a driver's license, together they picked a spot where the truck could come pick him up. The company was about 20 minutes north of the city, and a lot of their projects were closer to the metro. So they picked a Cub Foods and they meet there every morning, and that's just how they operate. So I guess just sharing that to show again that, you know, that's why we're here, just to discuss different ideas and questions and possibilities for how that might be workable, or, you know, really acknowledging the ways that it might not be workable. And that might be a long-term goal that you might establish with your team. So great question. Did anybody else, just before we jump into a wider discussion, anybody else have questions about Tree Trust or about Rainbow? Just open it up.
I was just curious about the marketing of your program, and kind of what are kind of some of the things that you've learned maybe at the beginning that you don't do now in terms of getting youth to join your Tree Trust?
Yeah, so you know, we have several different career pathways programs, so recruitment can look totally different. We have our summer youth employment program, which is upwards of 200 youth around the metro. So part of our approach to marketing that to high schools is through teachers, social service agencies, really specific to where we have funding for those individuals. For the Branches program, we've recruited from just various organizations that work with underserved youth and young adults. But it's really through those community partners that we're able to get the word out there. It is interesting. People don't grow up knowing what tree care is or knowing much about the green trades. I know I certainly didn't before I got into urban forestry, but so part of our approach is kind of providing that wider, hey, here is a career path for you. But also going to those specific champions that are out there that know what we do, that can advocate it towards youth and young adults, and market it in those specific areas. But no, we've learned a lot since implementation about what's workable and what isn't. Our program actually started with a driver's license requirement. And, knowing that was a huge challenge, we had to go back to the drawing board of, okay, how can we make this work? How do we choose pickup spots in the metro that are workable and effective for our team? Because we do have to be mindful of the trainer's time. And if it's a pickup spot 45 minutes from our office, we've had to consider the value add there. But no, so we learn pretty quickly different ways that we can adapt to those individuals, but also for our team that are working on those initiatives. We also learned pretty quickly that when it comes to variety, we also wanted to make sure that we had those specific industry opportunities. Obviously, there's more landscaping learning that can happen in the summer that wouldn't happen during the winter months. So we really try to bolster it as, okay, in the winter, they get these unique opportunities to really get into advanced felling or equipment use. But how can we make up for that lack of landscaping experience with some related instruction workshops? So yeah, that's a great question. That's kind of some of the first things that come to mind.
Has there ever been discussion, or is it just not feasible to include getting your driver's license as part of, for example, like the youth build program or the Branches program? Or is that too specific and can't be supported by the programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of our employment readiness training around driver's education mainly focuses on that classroom work. We have employment success coaches, formerly known as case managers, that really have focused time around just studying those basic knowledge tests. We also provide transportation if someone has a permit test at the DMV, or maybe is just struggling with test anxiety. I think that's something that increasingly this generation is struggling with. But no, we have had years previous where the Youth Build program has funding specifically designated for behind the wheel training time. This is something that we've kind of sunsetted just because there just isn't time to get to the core training that's so important to us. And that's really central to what we're teaching. But yeah, time really is the restraint there. Someone being in our program for 10 weeks, having time for driver's ed on top of that, passing your permit test, that can really be a challenge. But we're really grateful and lucky. We also have ways that our employer partners have supported us in this challenge. We've had individuals sign contracts that are contingent on when they get their driver's license. So they might sign a contract and then 6 months later, when they get their license, that contract is viable and they're ready to work for that company. So that also helps to give that incentive and empower those individuals to really follow up, find ways to rise over that challenge and make the arrangements they need to keep their timeline moving forward on obtaining that license.
I have one experience as a partner of Tree Trust for the technicians that we've taken on who have not come in with a license, especially from the recruiting standpoint. Like they're done with their program and now they are in that window of time between they're done with the 10-week program and they're coming to work for us in the spring. Especially for anybody who is a partner and looking to recruit from Tree Trust, stay connected with those folks. I know for myself as a recruiter and working with those individuals, there is, and especially one of the individuals, like they were doing exactly as Madeline was speaking of, they were in the program while also trying to obtain their license all at the same time. And it was a lot to juggle and they got discouraged. But as a person looking to take someone on who has experience and is coming from a reliable source like Tree Trust, it is super important that you keep the morale up and you encourage them as well. Because of that individual came in and they had their license. They were probationary, fine, but they were able to come in and successfully got their license. So at a recruiting standpoint, if you're looking at individuals who don't carry a license but are actively working towards getting it, I strongly encourage you to stay connected with those specific individuals because it is discouraging when they don't pass the first time or they have a lot of other things going on and they're studying this too. So you as an employer are just doing that extra step and like keeping them forward facing and knowing that if they can reach that goal, they have this as the reward to join you at your company. It's huge. So just try to pay back and connecting all of us. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. You and Roland really have been just shining star employer partners because of that involvement in not only hiring our trainees, but understanding where they came from and understanding the importance of that equity and that empowerment specific to these populations. So with that, more questions can come up. Obviously, jump in either on the chat or raise your hand. But I do have some questions that we could kind of use as a guide into the conversation. But really just want it to take organic form. We can go in any direction. We can answer none of these questions or discuss none of them or just start from the first one. But yeah, let me see if I can go to the next slide. Yeah. So a possible first question that we could go off of is just what other workforce challenges exist for you as either a local business or just an individual professional in hiring, either past or present?
I'll just jump in with something that's coming to mind for me. I think I always underestimate the amount of time that you need to take to properly train somebody, to give them the support on the front end, to learn what's going on, the system, and just where the keys for this thing are. And that can be challenging too, especially if it's a short-term employee where, you really need to spend like a full, some full days, some full, maybe weeks or more, just getting them onboarded. And I think sometimes I just forget that that's a thing I need to do.
I will jump in there. I'm heavily involved in my recruiting for 2024 right now. And a big challenge that I am recognizing now is the one that as much as we all see trees in our backyard and everything else, is this concept that like people don't know we exist, that like people take care of trees in an urban setting. And so going into high schools and colleges or county programs and then having somebody walk up and not only tell them that we exist, give them that layout of what this could be, but then also trying to sell this position to someone who is just at that moment learning that this is a possibility. And so you have to go above and beyond in that conversation to make almost a sale to this individual to be committed to going through the hiring process to come and join you in a area of work for which they have never even knew existed to that point. So that one for me is on my mind a lot, in like how to be more marketed towards schools, how to get our name out there, how to show people fun pictures like the ones in this slide right now of climbing, because that seems to be an eye grabber. Is what I can climb. I rock climb. Could I climb? Is that the same? And so that would be one of the challenges that I'm seeing outside of being the right age for certain licenses through the state, or even driver's license challenges. So
Danny, am I right in assuming that your challenge as a recruiter is actually just finding enough people to fill the amount of work that you have for them?
Yes. And last year we were successful, but in the past we have grown, which means we need more number of people, the number to grow as well. And currently my role outside of overseeing that division is I'm a year-round recruiter now, just because I need the number of people that I do. So,
And Emerald Ash Borer isn't stopping anytime soon, that's for sure.
No, not at all. And now we got oak wilt and two-line.
Yeah, and I'm going to a spotted lanternfly talk after this one, so.
Ooh. Exactly. That's gonna be a big one too. Like, not good. Job security, but holy buckets.
One word. Retention. That is huge. And I think that, with us, luckily, the people that make it through our programs, by the end, they have that confidence and that interest that's can kind of start as that spark of a passion. And we've seen successful results with the individuals that go and work for our employer partners, and they're retained. But right when they join our programs, it's like it is almost like you can pick and spot who is really, really difficult to flag down and keep interested and retain. So on the end of our programs, that's a challenge, is retention.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have anything that comes to mind? Otherwise, we could jump into another possible question. Is the presentation super zoomed in, or is that just me?
No, it's perfect.
It's fine here.
Okay.
I just had one question, maybe building on the retention for Danny. Is it typical pathway for someone to come in and do plant healthcare injections and then move on to a crew, like a tree crew, like doing groundwork? Are there a lot of openings on the tree crews as well?
This year would be the first year that we have less as compared to past years, but yes. So when I hire somebody on and they're interested in staying full time, I almost automatically jump to a different position. So regardless of the amount of people that I need, if somebody's coming in and they're not here for a short time, I'm automatically trying to get them to a different division, especially in prune care, especially if they've come with background. But yes, we have folks who'll stay on until October. Then we have the sit down conversation on how they were for the summer. And then we gear them towards where they want to go after that. So everything from lights for our lawn division to prune care to if they're interested in pests, they might move over to do pest experts. Obviously, if you're not a multifaceted company, it's a little bit harder to have those options. But we do get a handful of folks each year where it's like they're dabbling on things and they may want to stay on. So we start having those conversations at the start. So, yeah.
So what would you see as the greatest barrier or as a challenge to implementing non-driving crew member roles? I know Danny talked a little bit about her perspective on those challenges, but what would you envision for your team might be a challenge there?
It's a little bit different for me here at the U of M. It's sort of a different type of work that we do, but I could imagine if you're a company, it could just be a sort of cold hard economic kind of decision where you kind of you choose to put the business model, in front of the person. So I guess, Danny, I don't know if you know exactly, but I'm kind of curious. You talked a little bit about efficiency, like with the buddy crews. Do you have a sense of, is it, 60% as effective as two individuals, or 75, 80? Do you have a sense of like how that compares efficiency wise?
Yeah, so we see about a 30% drop in efficiency with the buddy crews. The margin for injections is super high, and we don't have everyone doing buddy crews, and so we're able to take that. Now, we have seen where we've had 100% too. So if we can get it balances out, at least currently. If we started taking on more folks, we had to do more buddy system, it might create a hindrance, so we might have to back off it a little bit. But we have seen where we've seen 100% efficiency because of the immense amount of trees in a city that have to be done, and those techs are able to be individualized to doing the injections. But we again acknowledge it, and we are willing to take that. But to what you're kind of pointing to Ryan, is we still have a company to run. We are tree hugging capitalists at the end of the day. And so the one thing that I'd say as a barrier is, if we have those buddy crews and the individual who doesn't carry a driver's license and won't be able to carry a driver's license by the end of a summer, but wants to stay on with us, that conversation starts at the beginning of the season. They are able to move into another type of buddy crew in our lights division, which brings them to the end of November. And then from there, like this year, I will have to cut ties with a very good employee, but we can't have, at least in our pruning division, we can't have folks go into pruning if they can't drive. So that's kind of where that barrier is at that point. We do have a few other options like warehouse that we can take some folks into. But in the case of this year, there wasn't enough warehouse work to be able to put that many individuals there. And so we do have to cut one good employee because they just don't carry a driver's license. So
it is interesting too to consider how efficiency might look completely different based on the scope of projects. Like, for example, when we're working on different areas of the Dakota Trail, they have a different kind of system. Instead of having an assembly line like they might when we're managing specific properties, where one person gets out all the equipment, the other person goes and does, this thing over here, hop back in the truck, next property. It's completely different when they're out on the trail, and they can just kind of slowly inch their way up, different people with different tools and different assigned areas. So I don't think that was anything other than just a side note of just how that might look differently, and what efficiency means can look so different based on the scope of work, where they're working, and how big the company is. Yeah. So much to consider there.
Michelle, I have a question for you with the Community Forestry Corps and Climate Corps folks that you have working with you. How do you all get around the non-driving license? Because I know there are quite a few members that don't have their driver's license. How does that get accommodated with your host sites?
Yeah, it's really on a kind of case-by-case basis, and what each host site has the capacity to do. We have seen kind of similar things where they'll be paired up with another staff member. And yeah, but we unfortunately don't have the same capability of like offering a driving license or like permit kind of training opportunity. That being said, most of the people that we're working with are high school graduates, so they're a little bit older. They've had a little bit more time to potentially get that. Yeah, it's mostly been the buddy system though.
Thanks. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just knew that there were some members that didn't have driver's licenses through a couple of cohorts now.
Something that I'm thinking about in regards to recruitment, Karen, I think you brought this up at the short course meeting, but that the time to really get this field on people's radars is middle school. And I just wonder, as we continue to develop more and more recruitment and bringing people into the field, of having that on their radar already, of like, these are some things that you can think about preparing to move into this field. Get a driver's license. And of course, there are other hurdles to getting that, as we've discussed, but even just the fact that, I should get that license, that could come in handy. And other, education, like start learning about trees, this kind of stuff. But just thinking about trying to include this kind of, trying to get ahead of the barriers as an industry and community, recruit into the fold. And we will be coming up on time here fairly soon. I guess I'm curious. I think, Danny, you said that there are other workforce challenges that you have beyond just the driver's license issue, and we kind of have done a deep dive on the driver's license issue. Is that true? And if maybe just highlighting a couple other areas that you're noticing, or Madeline too, for that matter.
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking off you talking about like going to junior highs or even high school level, I guess in a general sense, what at least I'm seeing as a recruiter just getting into the season again, is being able to get an employee what they need in that conversation. So like the tree care industry has lots to offer in creating a profession that somebody can grow and develop in all the way up to a long-term career. The problem that I see a lot of times is that starting point of having a conversation, even with somebody who's interested in forestry, and being like, well, have you thought of doing private tree care? And they are, but one of the things there is like, where are the benefits? Like, what does a private tree care company have that a government or forestry position doesn't have? And are theirs better? And so for my conversations that I usually have with candidates is on the skill building. And when I say skill building, I mean, you're going into the depths of like what I've seen, at least what's been perking folks' attention towards private tree care is the concept of becoming at least a entry-level arborist, technical arborist, if nothing else, and having conversations around what that entails and where they can take it. And I know we're all about retention and trying to keep people on long term, but at least for the seasonality of plant health care, which can somewhat roll into maybe someone's company who only does prune care during the winter or during the summer, is getting to a point where you understand that you may lose this person after a year or 2 years, hopefully after 2 years. So you're able to find someone to replace them, but genuinely beginning to get the mindset with that employee of the importance and impact they're going to do in the time that they're there with you, and ensuring that you do build that skill set. You have those conversations on what the future will look like if they were to stay on, what they're contributing to, all at the start of recruiting that person. Like beginning those conversations right off the bat with why they're important and why they should truly give the green industry a try before jumping over into the more governmental forestry side of things. So urban private forestry and the differences between forestry and the public sector areas too. So that's kind of one of the big ones that I'm seeing is candidates want to go towards government jobs or DNR or those areas, and they don't take a second thought towards private simply because they find that the benefits are more if they go in that direction, and they'd rather jump from a seasonal job within LTE for the DNR or summertime jobs with the forestry department in their city compared to seeing they can get the exact same skill set going into private tree and even potentially have more security in long term with a tree company than they would doing an LTE position or working as an intern for a city for the summer. So that's one of them. And then one that all of you should take with you right now is communication is absolutely key when it comes to keeping someone in the pipeline for recruiting. And I mean like effective timeline, when you're going to communicate, how you're going to communicate, and doing that all the way up to the point that they're in the door and about to be trained on their first day. Because people drop off and ghost super fast nowadays because of that. So.
Yeah, I have answer to that, but I also know we are out of time. So this really is just a launch to this wider conversation. We're not here to solve these problems, but it is great to feel that we're just getting momentum around this. I do just want to put my contact information in the chat. We are always looking for employer partners that believe in what we do. And, you know, as much as we talk about the challenges for our participants, we do have plenty of trainees that have their driver's licenses. We have a class graduating soon of trainees. So please reach out anytime. Karen also has my contact information. So if you don't grab it in time, I'm sure she could connect us in the future. But again, just really want to thank Ryan and Danny for bringing this all together. It's just great way that we can achieve progress on these challenges.
Yeah, and thank you, Madeline, and Danny, of course, as well, for facilitating this and providing all your insights and getting this on our radar.